Hi everyone, good to see you again. Sorry you had to see that earlier, but I can assure you that everything turned out okay. See? It was just a funny coincidence. Alright, let's head back to the office. In my previous video, I discussed arrhythmias when I reacted to Briette Cookie Box's medical journey in her tachycardia. I received a suggestion to explore arrhythmias further, this time featuring Yena Youngblood from Chronoshift, formerly known as Idol. Now, I watched Yena, and I know she's got a laundry list of medical issues, so I won't touch on most of them today. Otherwise, this video will be at least an hour long. We'll just focus on her heart today. And, as a reminder, this video is intended to be slightly entertaining, hopefully somewhat educational, and not diagnostic. Alright, let's begin.
How am I still alive at this point? Sheer willpower and fumes, man. And a lot of spite. Like, genuinely, I'm not gonna lie, I think if I was a weaker person, I don't know if I would be here today. Like, I have survived through life on sheer willpower and just spite to keep on living because people tell me I'm not allowed to. That's basically it. Yeah, I mean, like, I've mentioned this multiple times, but like, I wasn't supposed to live past 25. When I was, from the years of when I was 9 to 13, they were really unsure if I was even going to make it into like, even into teenage years, like without like intensive support. Like there was a very good chance that I was gonna be just in the ICU for, you know, supportive care for the rest of my life. And yet here I am, you know? And yet here I am. Fucking beat the odds. Yeah, boys, I've been through I've actually literally been through hell and black. Hell and black. Sorry, I can't speak English today for some reason. Yeah, I mean, like, there was a running joke for a while, even amongst my friends, that I had died and come back to life. Because I don't know if you guys know what SVTs are, but SVTs are supraventricular tachycardia. Sorry, supraventricular tachycardia. I realize I just said that like a rap god, but basically what happens with those is your heart's electrical system goes out of whack. And it causes your heart to beat really, really fast in order to try to like get it back into rhythm. This isn't the first time you come back to life. No, I've come back to life 4 times in my life. 4 times.
Huh. I guess that means that the guy from the beginning of the video is a fourth of the way to Yena's record, huh? Oh, as Yena explained, SVT is supraventricular tachycardia. We briefly talked about SVT in the previous video, and here's the graphic that I showed then that oversimplifies how SVT occurs. The electrical activity that naturally paces your heart short circuits in a way and causes your heart to beat faster. And sometimes it literally short circuits, creating loops of electrical signals that travel where they aren't supposed to. SVT is one category of fast arrhythmia, and there are other types of fast arrhythmia categorized by where in your heart wiring the electrical problem is, either on the top side or the bottom side, and what pattern the heart is beating in, whether it still beats in a regular rhythm or if it becomes irregular and erratic, or if it becomes so disorganized that it stops any sort of synchronized beating altogether. As you can probably imagine in the latter case, if your heart muscle is unable to coordinate itself well enough to even beat properly, that isn't really great for keeping your body alive, and is appropriately called cardiac arrest. So anyways, how do we as doctors treat fast arrhythmias? Let's see what Yena goes through.
So what happens with SVTs is typically when people have SVTs, they can usually resolve it on their own. It's like not a big deal because it typically just like fixes itself if it's not too big of a, you know, issue. But some people like me, I can't resolve it on my own. Like no matter what I do, I can do a Valsalva maneuver. I can, do breathing exercises. It doesn't resolve on its own. So I need to go to the hospital and get a dosage of adenosine. Adenosine is a naturally occurring chemical in your body, but the reason why they can only administer it in the hospital is because it basically kills you for a millisecond. I know that sounds really scary, but what it does is that it stops your heart completely for a fraction of a second, and then it reboots it back up. And the reason why it does that is because adenosine has a really, really short half-life. So it metabolizes really, really fast, which causes it to basically act really fast and immediately process out of your body. But what happens during that time that it is metabolizing is that it stops your heart completely. And one time, the nurse who was administering my adenosine gave me a little bit too much. And let's just say that the feeling of death started settling in. Like, when your heart stops... Oh, by the way, you're fully conscious for this. Like, I'm fully aware of my heart stopping when this happens. And my heart stopped for a little bit longer than a second, and it was really scary because I was fully conscious for it, and I started feeling that sense of dread. Like, I started feeling, oh God, I'm gonna die. And it was terrifying. But after the fact, we joked around about it, and we were like, haha, yeah, so the white light,
So anyways, there are a few ways that we treat fast arrhythmias, and it depends on how urgently we need to treat someone. Yena mentions that some people can do the Valsalva maneuver, which can be described by taking a breath in, holding that breath, and then trying to push that breath out while still holding it in. Go on, give it a try. Now, you usually experience this in everyday life when you either try to lift heavy things or when you're constipated and are trying to push it all out. The pressure you generate in your body stimulates a nerve called the vagus nerve, which slows your heart down. We like to suggest maneuvers like these because they're free and quick to do at home. But what if they don't work, or if the arrhythmia is significant? Then we turn to more direct methods, like medications. Yena brings up adenosine, which, like she says, is a naturally occurring molecule in your body. Does anyone remember ATP from their high school biology class? The A stands for adenosine. Yena describes it as rebooting your heart, stopping it completely for a short time, and then letting it restart, which is kind of true. What adenosine actually does is it slows and stops the electricity passing through the atrioventricular node, or the AV node, which is a spot in your heart that acts as a gatekeeper and conductor. In some kinds of SVT, there can be an actual short circuit where the electricity loops around the AV node, and stopping or slowing that electricity for a split second can be enough to break that loop and return your heart rate to normal. Now, the top part of your heart still beats normally because adenosine doesn't affect that, but most of your heart does stop, and it definitely feels that way. Yena talks about the feeling that she's about to die, and that's a real feeling that's been described from adenosine. In fact, I actually warn my patients about it before I give the medication. Though, I have to be honest, I've never given too much of it. That's not a great thing to happen, to say the least. I have given too little of it once because I spilled some by accident. Anyway, what actually is a reboot of your heart is an electrical shock. A shock turns on all of your heart muscle cells at once. The goal is to stop all electrical signals, both normal and abnormal, and allow the normal signal to restart on its own. A shock can either be done as a defibrillation or a synchronized cardioversion. They differ in the timing and how powerful the shock is, and we use them for different reasons. Defibrillation is used during a cardiac arrest and is the one most people are familiar with. It's a strong shock delivered as soon as possible to try to get a normal heart rhythm going. Synchronized cardioversion, meanwhile, is synced to a patient's heartbeat and is also weaker. We use this when someone's heart is still going, but abnormally, like in SVT. It's synced because if we shock at the wrong time, we can actually cause a cardiac arrest. We also only shock certain kinds of heart rhythms. and TV shows and movies often portray this incorrectly. For example, we usually don't shock a flatline or asystole during a cardiac arrest because it's unlikely to help and waste time. The exact details are published in these flowcharts and algorithms by the American Heart Association, and many healthcare professionals commit these to memory when they become certified in advanced cardiac life support. Now, we briefly talked about death and dying with cardiac arrest, and Yena had some comments about her thoughts and experiences.
What did it physically feel like? It's kind of hard to describe, but you can physically feel like your toes and your fingers getting cold, and then you start getting this like tingly sensation, where it's almost like you're like, you know when you sit on the toilet for too long and you go numb? It's kind of like that, but imagine that like almost in your brain, if that makes sense. And you start feeling this like indescribable dread. Like you start feeling like, oh my god, something terrible is gonna happen. It's terrifying, dude. It's genuinely scary. Like I wouldn't wish that experience on anyone. And thankfully, I don't have to experience it often. I haven't had an SVT episode in, God, I think like 5 years now at this point. So fingers crossed that, I don't have one anytime soon. Nearly dying is horrifying as someone who has gone through that too. It's horrifying. It's terrifying. No, it really is. It's one of those things that I genuinely would never wish on anyone. Like I joke around about it because it's like humor is a coping mechanism. You know what I mean? But like during the moment, I was scared to death. I genuinely felt like this was the end. This was like, I was like, it's fucking over. I'm fucking dead.
Modern medicine has come a long way, and machines exist that can replace the role of important organs like your kidneys, your lungs, and your heart. But even though we can do these things, we think less often about whether or not patients want these, especially in the long term. Sadly, a lot more people have been dying in the ICUs, surrounded by tubes and machines in recent times. We should start asking ourselves, is that what I or my loved ones would want? That's a tough question to answer. The best way to know is to ask and talk about these things. We call this advanced care planning because that's what it is, planning for care in advance. This can include talk about a do not resuscitate, or DNR, but it doesn't have to be. I've had these discussions before, and I get that it can be scary, almost like you're wishing ill on someone for talking about these things. But the sad truth is that both doctors and families aren't doing a great job of starting these conversations to begin with. As low as 15% of healthy older adults reported having a discussion with their doctor about this in some studies. The main takeaway for everyone is to be proactive and present with your loved ones, especially if they have chronic or worsening medical conditions. Medical illnesses can already be isolating to deal with, and we've seen that social isolation matters when it comes to talking about goals of care, planning for care in advance, and identifying someone close who can be trusted to make important medical decisions if a person is too sick to make those decisions themselves. And if they are willing to confide with you about their fears and worries about the future of their care, lend them an ear if you feel comfortable and able to. It can mean a lot. It's not an easy thing to think or talk about. But at the end of the day, would it be better to have the discussion early? Or not have it at all?